Ek Onkar Satguru Prasad. Welcome back to In the Code. This is day 3 of documentation for your Adobe After Effects extension. Some significant progress I've made in this video. So what I've written here is my GitHub commit summary. So I keep committing this code to GitHub so that one, I have a backup, and second, I know exactly at what point how my code was. So every time you commit, GitHub keeps a history of it. So let me just show it to you. If this is my GitHub repository, you come into history. So this was my GitHub commit 4 days ago. This was the initial commit. I started 4 days ago only, and this is how the code looked, right? The green is the one that I've done changes, and red is the things that I removed from the script for ext.js, index.html, and simplesuper.jsx. And similarly for today, this is the things I have added, and the red is the things that I've removed. So it's a great way to organize your projects, your coding based projects specifically. So all layers position an anchor in the center of the comp. Additionally, for separate text layers, we arrange the prefix and suffix text position accordingly. Learned using the this keyword would refer to other functions within the same object in the JSX file. So I remember making a video in the code itself explaining the this keyword, and honestly I never understood what this keyword does. It was just always very esoteric, so to speak, because I would see this being used so often in code, and I'd be like, why are you using this? But now that I've seen a real life application, and this is the thing with coding, maybe everything in general, but with coding to a great extent, just learning concepts or theory from a book is really of no use, and even applications that they provide aren't really so intriguing unless you apply those applications in your personal project or something that you're interested in, like an After Effects extension. So even with web development, if I was learning web development straight up, watching YouTube tutorials or doing courses, trying to build portfolio websites and all of this, yes, there is a scope for that also. I want to do that. But with HTML panels being a part of Adobe extension, this is something that ties in so perfectly with what I'm already doing and what I want to learn. The way we're dividing this video is 3 parts. I'll show you my progress on the extension, then how we've used the this keyword, and then logic for arranging separate layers. Okay, firstly we'll show what the extension does. So you see there is no composition in the project right now. I'm hitting create, nothing's happening. Okay, that's the message box from last time. I haven't styled it yet. Just make a new comp here, and firstly I'm gonna add a rupee here. Ouch. So I'm gonna add rupee here, let's say 50,000 for the main text, and I'm going to add %sign for the suffix. Now combine is not checked if we hit create, so we're going to get one text layer. Wait, let me increase the size of this. So window character, make this big 500 or something. So I'll delete this and create, that will be retained. Okay, firstly let me check combine. So if I check combine, that will make one text layer with these added. So that makes rupee 5,000 % as one single text layer here. Now if I uncheck combine, I should get 3, let me take this up, I should get 3 separate text layers. One thing you will notice is that by default it made the text layer in the center of the composition, and the anchor point is also in the center of the layer. If I check combine, or if I don't check combine and I create, I get 3 text layers, and they are all having their anchor points in the center of those individual text layers, and it is displaced like it should be. Now it's not exactly like here. If I had to do that, it would be something like this. But the entire reason I want these to be separate layers instead of one combined layer is because I don't want to use it this way. In most cases, what I would want to do is, let's say this is here, I would style it something like this, and then put this here, and then maybe add this here. This is just an example, but this is how I would style my number counters. So I want this to be the case where it's all like separate things. Let's take the application and then this keyword at the same time. So what I've done is, if you look at the create combined text and the create separate text, let's start with the create combined text, so that's a little easier to look at. So this is from earlier, create combined text. Let me make this a little smaller so that everything is visible. Create combined text is a function which is taking 3 parameters, pt, st, sft. I actually changed it to empty in this function because it was getting confusing. So let me do that here. So we're saying main text and suffix text. Okay, prefix text, main text, suffix text. So pt plus mt plus st. Okay, and where else have we used this? That's all. Okay, so we say if comp variable combined text is this addition of these parameters pt plus mt plus st, combined text layer is comp dot layers or add text combined text. So we're adding this text layer. Now this dot center anchor point combined text layer, this dot center position combined text layer comp, this dot center anchor point. So you see in our simple super.jsx everything is enclosed within this jQuery selector $._ext. So this is like a object in object-oriented programming, and every time inside JavaScript when we wanted to use this any of these compositions, we were saying any of these functions, we were saying evolve script $._ext, which is named the object, and then dot the function which belongs to this object. We're not doing JavaScript today, it's only JSX. So inside this we have all these comma separated functions. Okay, now over here when we say create combined text, so the thing is a lot of the times I have to use source selected time. The way you achieve this is, the way I've done is source selected time, which is the layers width, height, left, top values. Now on multiple occasions you would want to need source selected time, and that's the entire idea behind programming, is using functions or usable blocks of code. Just make it makes your code a lot neater and a lot easier to read, and B, it just makes it a lot more optimized, so you don't have to keep doing the same thing over and over. So over here when we say center anchor point, it goes to this layer, and any other function that I want to call within the same object, I just use this keyword dot center anchor point, and if it has any input parameters, you give it that. So combined text layer is this layer which was created. We're talking about this layer here, the first one that we created. This layer we are sending as an input parameter to center anchor point, and center anchor point is doing what? It's defining an anchor point, which is layer, which is this layer, whatever layer we gave as input, that layer's property transform anchor point. Then with height, left, top is this dot layer source rect props. Now here there is another function that we're using. So I could have just done this layer, I could have defined this variable rect over here, and then width is equal to rect.width, rect.height, and this is how I did it earlier. But as I said, I want to be able to use these properties on a later function as well, which is this layer here, this function here, arrange text layers. So that's why I put that in a separate function. So this function layer source rect properties takes a layer, then it defines a variable which is holding the source vector time value, and then 4 more variables which are defining the width, height, left and top of that rect property. And then we're finally returning an array of width, height, left and top. Okay, now one thing which is important to note here is with source vector time and doing it this way, height, width, height, left, top, what these are returning is actually values, and that is important, because here when I'm going to show layer.position, when we say layer pos is layer.property transform, and when we return layer pos, okay, this is returning an object property, it's not returning a value. That's why you have to return layer pos.value. And how did I learn this? Through trial and error and having the code not work like I wanted to. So over here we call this dot layer width is equal to this dot layer source vector or layer source rect props, and then in the bracket layer, which is this layer, which again when we're calling it here is which layer? Combined text layer. It all makes sense when you look at it chronologically. And here we're calling the 0th parameter, which is width. Similarly, first, second, third in JavaScript, your array indexes start from 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3 gives us width, height, left and top, and then anchor point dot set value left dot width by 2, top plus height by 2. This is a general After Effects principle that if you were to set your anchor point to left plus width by 2 and top plus height by 2, it will go to the dead center of your layer contents. If it's a shape layer, it can have multiple contents, but the bounds of the layer in the center of that. So that is that, and this is how we're centering the anchor point. Center position is another function here. It's all functions, and here it is important to define comp, because what we're doing is we're saying in order to define the layer to the position of the layer to the center of the composition, we need to know comp, which comp we're talking about. That's why we add that as a parameter here, because remember, if I was to change the composition, it would still be referring to comp1 if we didn't add that. So we add a comp here, and while calling we just say comp, and that is defined here once. Variable comp is project.activeItem. It's, you can say app.project.activeItem just to be a little more explicit, but project should also work because we've defined at the top variable project is app.project. Anyway, so that is for center position, and what we're doing is we're taking comp is project.activeItem, position is layer.property.transform.position, and then we're saying post.setValue com.width/2 com/height/2. That's the center position. Okay, so that's your create combine text. Now we go to create separate text. Over here everything is the same except for there is one additional thing I've added here is if there are, let me delete this, if I don't have this, okay, and I don't check combine, and when I hit create I want only two. Now why I held my voice for a minute is because if this is the case and I say create, then my arrange text layers is working like it should. But if this is missing and I hit create, then we're not running this function, this dot arrange text layers. Because then what happens is we don't create this layer, right? And if this layer is not created and it goes here, After Effects doesn't know what to do with this function. I can see troubleshoot right now as well. Okay, I'll figure this later on how we can, even if this is null, because there is no input here, that's why After Effects doesn't know how to run this function. That's why arrange text layers is not working. Let me just put a percentage here so that it runs this function, and then I'll explain how that function works. Now this is the arrange text layers. This is the only thing which is different here. This has a bit of a logic in it. So arrange text layers, PTL, MTL, STL. The reason I've added a capital L is it gives me a reminder that this function needs to accept a layer, and that is important. You want to know whether your function is accepting a layer or is accepting a value or property what. So just to make it very clear. So here PTL, MTL, STL. Now with the PTL is this dot layer source rec props. So what is the logic here? The logic is this: arranged PT, we create all of these. Firstly we create all of these here. Okay, now what we do is, let me delete all of this. So by default all of them, we say control home, they come here. Now I take this one which is prefix text, okay, and I subtract half of the main text layer. So main text layer, let's say the width, if you follow my cursor here, let me make it a little bigger. For this, if this was the main text layer, half of this would be from here to here. So if I take my rupee and I subtract it by half, then I come here, okay, and then what I do is I subtract the width of this layer, so this thing here. I think if I did width by 2, then it would be like, if I did subtract width by 2, then it would be something like this, like very close. So I had subtracted width, and that brings us here. Okay, similarly for percentage, I add half of the main text, so that brings me here, and then I add the entirety of this own layers width, so that brings me about here. So this is the logic behind how we're arranging the position of those. So if I remove all these layers and without combine, if I create, then this is how the position of the layers are getting displaced. So now if I was to quickly show you the logic behind this, we define width. Again, this is why we needed this in a separate function, so that in any other function I can just easily access the width without having to again and again define those layers and then do source vector time dot width. Just this dot layer source rec props. Okay, PTL, which is the layer which is coming in from here, so that is prefix text layer, MTL main text layer, and STL suffix text layer, and 0 we discussed already, that's returning the width. So now we have width of all the 3 layers, and I was doing some alerts. This is just your checking why it is not working. So position PTL, again layer position PTL and layer position STL. Now I said this is important because layer position is returning layer pos dot value. If I didn't have dot value here, I would have to add dot value here. Okay, but I added in the function itself, so it can stay like this. Now arranged PT is position of PTL, that is position of prefix text layer, which is in the center of the comma at the beginning, minus width of main text layer by 2, that brings us here, minus width of prefix text layer. Now arranged suffix text is position of suffix text layer, which again is going to be in the center, plus width of main text layer by 2, that brings us here, plus width of suffix text layer, which is exactly what I explained just here in the form of this code. Okay, and then we say ptl.property transform.property position.set value to arranged pt and arranged st. This is how it works. I think it's pretty straightforward, but it was significant progress. I did this in a matter of 2 sessions. One was 50-minute session and one was I think 20-minute session something. And I've been using this timer device. Is great. It acts as a clock, as an alarm clock, and as a timer. So if I go into mode here, you see here there's a timer. If you can see over here on the top side, there is timer written, and I can set this timer to whatever I want. So if I set it to 3 minutes and I say start, then it'll count down from 3. So I usually set like Pomodoro technique, Pomodoro timers for like 45-50 minutes. And this is great instead of doing it on the computer's timer or on phone, because on phone there's a lot of distraction, so it makes it difficult to do anything. Just clear this. Okay, that is it for today's documentation. Thank you so much for being in the code. I will catch you in the next video. Peace. Waheguru Ji ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji ki Fateh.